Hi there, welcome back to Books and Tea with Sarah. I'm yours truly, and today I'm drinking Celestial Tea's peppermint tea, which is a great pick-me-up alternative to coffee or black tea. For today's video, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about myself with 25 bookish facts about me, so let's get started. 1. The first book that I can remember trying to read by myself was Karen's Witch, which is the first book to the Babysitter's Little Sister series. I don't remember ever finishing it, and this might be due to the fact that I think I started reading it while I was still learning to read, so it was a little beyond my reading ability because it was a chapter book. 2. My obsession with collecting books began with the Junie B. Jones and the Magic Treehouse series. Every Christmas I would ask for the next 5 books in the series, even though I hadn't read the first one yet, so it kind of started this whole collecting books but not reading them thing. 3. I didn't start reading Harry Potter until the first movie came out, which I was 8 at the time, so it was about the time that I would start reading the series, maybe a little bit early for me. After seeing the movie, I thought that I could just skip the first book and start reading the second book in the series. I now credit one of my older sisters for teaching me that movies do not replace books, and now I always have to read the book before seeing the movie. 4. I haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird or Fahrenheit 451. I don't know if this is the case for Fahrenheit 451, but definitely for To Kill a Mockingbird. I missed the year that they read it. In middle school, I transferred into the gifted classes, and the year previous to when I transferred, they read To Kill a Mockingbird, and then the next year after, or a couple years after, the regular classes read To Kill a Mockingbird, so I kind of missed it in the middle there. 5. While I love being involved in the bookish community and I love reading, I have no interest in the English subject. I hated analyzing books in school. There's actually quite a few books that I never finished in high school. So instead of pursuing an English degree, I earned my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. 6. I don't get too bothered by spoilers unless it's a new book. So if the book's been out for a few years, i.e. Game of Thrones, which also has a TV series out that's been out for a while, then it's kind of my own fault that I haven't read the series yet, and if I get spoiled, then it's my fault. But if a book is new, then I really hate spoilers. I can't stand it. I feel like people are a little too lax about it. And then I also don't really like spoilers for psychological thrillers. I don't think they're as fun to read after you know the twist. For example, Gone Girl, I actually watched the movie before I read the book, and I'm curious as to how I would have enjoyed the book if I hadn't known the storyline going into it. 7. I'm also not too bothered by tropes. I really enjoy love triangles, no matter how poorly they're done. One trope that I have noticed starting to bother me, because I feel like authors just make it too predictable, is the whole lost princess. The main character is the lost princess. I just think that authors are making it a lot more predictable than they plan to, or than they intend to. And so I just get frustrated for that 150, 200 pages where I know what's happening and the character doesn't know it yet. Number 8, I'm slowly getting more and more comfortable with writing in my books. In high school, I absolutely hated it. I would never bring a pen even close to a book, except there were a few books that were different circumstances. They were books that were pretty much specifically written to be critically analyzed, like Siddhartha or Brave New World. But as far as like literary fiction, I wouldn't write in them. Now I use sticky notes, but I really hope to one day get to being comfortable writing in the margins. I just really like the idea of being able to reread the book and see my old notes, or even maybe one day my children reading my books and seeing my notes, or even like just a stranger reading my notes after I donate a book to a charity shop or something. 9. When I was in high school, I went through a short phase where I would read while walking between classes. I only did this for a few of my passing periods because for most of them I did walk with friends, but for the fair few that I didn't see friends, I would start reading. I knew my route pretty well at this point, and there were so many people in high school that the flow of traffic was really slow, and I could just follow along with people without having to look up from my book. On a similar note, one day I was on my way back to school from home, and my mother was wishing me safe travels back to school, and she also said, "Don't start reading while you're driving." And she said it kind of jokingly, but at the same time, the way she said it, it sounded like she actually thought that I had done that before. I've never done this before, and I strongly encourage that you not do that. It may sound like a brilliant idea, but it's not worth it. 10. I love authors that use page breaks. Page breaks are lifesavers. They allow me to pick up a book when I only have a couple of minutes to read, and then I can easily pick the book back up again later after I have to put it down. 11. I worked at a library the summer after my freshman year of college, and this completely destroyed my Goodreads to read shelf. I wasn't allowed to read at the front desk so that people felt comfortable approaching me when they needed something, so instead I would just sit on the computer that we had there on my Goodreads, and I would look at the Discover page and just look for a bunch of new books to add to my to-read, even though I was never going to read them. So I now have upwards of like 1,500 books on that shelf or something. I added a lot of books during that time. 12. That library job was also where I discovered my love for Sarah Dessen. She came out with a new book that year, so I was seeing it constantly go in and out of the library, and that's when I decided to read all of her books. 13. The format of the book that I buy depends on which cover I like the best. Sometimes I like the hardbacks better, sometimes I like the paperbacks better, sometimes I like the UK covers better. Which brings me to 13A. I absolutely hate that paperbacks and hardbacks have different covers in a lot of books, and I hate that different countries have different covers. I just don't understand why everyone can't have the same cover. But in any case, I think I prefer reading paperbacks. They're a little bit easier to handle, but I still, for the most part, I always end up liking the hardback cover better, so I usually get the hardback. 14. I am incredibly sympathetic towards animals. If you're an author that kills an animal friend, then my opinion of you drops significantly. I once put a book down for several months after the pet died, and I cried for quite a few weeks after that. Like, for quite a few nights I would go to bed just crying about it, and I still cry sometimes when I think about it today. 15. I am getting incredibly tired of book-to-screen adaptations. I think this stems from just that I want to be able to imagine the book in my own head and not see someone else's vision for the story or the characters. But it also comes from, I just want some new movies. Like, people, they just keep putting out these superhero movies and these book movies that I'm tired of it. I really want people to show their own creativity and not just copying other people's ideas. It just makes me think that people aren't original anymore and that the movie industry is completely dying. 16. In elementary school, we used to get these little slips from Pizza Hut where we would read a certain amount of time and we could scratch off a slice. And once we scratched off an entire pizza, we would get a free personal pizza. I think this, in a way, is a reason that pizza and books are two of my favorite things. I kind of attribute one with the other in my subconscious, and so I just love both of them. 17. All of my bookshelves are from my grandparents. They picked them up on auctions, and I think that since they're passing, I'll never want to get rid of them, even though I really want larger bookshelves and more basic matching bookshelves. I think that once I have a house that I can have a room dedicated to books, then I'll be able to use these smaller shelves that they've given me for other things like DVDs and figurines and things like that, or even just one shelf that's all classics or one shelf that's like my favorite books of all time. 18. I love reading with people. It doesn't have to be the same book or anything. I just like sitting on the couch with someone and enjoying their company, but still just reading. I don't get to do this too much anymore because I don't have friends where I live, and my boyfriend has kind of fallen out of reading a little bit, but I'm definitely trying to change that about him. 19. I love black covers. They're like probably my favorite thing ever because they're so simple, but I also hate them so much because they attract fingerprints like it's nobody's business. Number 20. I will always take a book with me no matter where I go. Like going to the grocery store, oh, just let me grab my book. Or have an interview? Okay, I'll be there in a second, I just have to get my book. Sometimes my boyfriend doesn't let me take books with me, but that's okay because I still have my phone, which I have a Kindle app on, which has books on it, so I can still read. Fun story, I went to a job interview that was like an hour away from where I lived, and it was in the middle of nowhere, so it was kind of like a 2-lane highway to get there. And so I took a book with me, even though all I would be doing is driving and then go to the interview and then driving back. Well, on my way home, there was this huge semi-accident that blocked up my side of the highway, and there wasn't any way for me to get off to take another route or anything. So I was sitting there for half an hour at least waiting for the accident to get cleared up. So I was incredibly incredibly happy that I brought my book with me. 21. I prefer buying used books mostly because I'm cheap. If I want a specific cover, then I might buy it new if I haven't seen it at my used bookstore at all. But also, since moving to the East Coast, I buy a lot more new books because the used bookstore that's near me isn't as good as half-price books, and I'm really missing half-price books. 22. I hate novellas and prequels. I think they're kind of a cheap way for someone to get more money out of a story that's already just fine on its own. If these stories come out in the middle of a series, then I won't buy the book, but I'll pick it up from the library to read it, because usually there's some sort of information that you need to continue the series, but the overall story itself isn't important. But from now on, if it's something that's released at the end of the series or something, then I'm just not gonna pick it up. Like Stars Above, guys, I didn't care. 23. I love audiobooks, but I'm also super picky about the narrator. It makes or breaks the book for me. So I end up having a really hard time starting new audiobooks because I'm afraid that if it's a bad narrator, I'm not going to want to pick up the physical book. Case in point, a couple of years ago, I started listening to City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I think that's the first one. I started listening to the first one by Cassandra Clare, and the narrator just made the main character sound incredibly whiny, and it was completely off-putting to me. And I still haven't picked up the series to this day, and it's probably going to be a very long time before I actually get around to reading that series. 24. Noise while reading is a very case-by-case basis for me. I usually only listen to music when there are other noises that I want to drown out, and with that, it can't have any lyrics. It can't be a musical score that I recognize really well, like a really well-known movie score, and it also can't be something that's emotionally overwhelming. I grew up being around music a lot. I was in the marching band and everything, and so music has a great effect on my emotions, and so there can't be too many like musical swells or things like that. As for the television, it's honestly hit or miss. So, for example, when my boyfriend watches Anthony Bourdain, which is a travel show, and a show that I have some interest in, I can read no problem. But when he watches Seinfeld, which I don't care about very much, and I don't really want to watch most of the time, I can't read at all. I think it must have something to do with, like, the characters yelling at each other and things like that, but yeah, it's incredibly distracting. And 25, I don't typically reread books, but that's not because I don't have intention to. So most of the books that I buy them because I'll want to reread them someday. I'm actually trying to get into the habit of only getting new books from the library, and instead all the books that I buy are ones that I've already read and really enjoyed. So there's actually only 2 books that I've reread. One is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which I didn't read for the second time until last October, which was 15 years after I read it the first time. And then the second book was Illuminae, which I reread for the purpose of the release of Gemina, which was kind of stupid because I had literally read Illuminae for the first time only 2 or 3 months before Gemina released. So yeah, my rereading record isn't that great. But I hope that one day I'll get tired of reading new releases, and so I'll just have a collection of books that I love that I'll reread. So those are all the facts that I could come up with. I'm sure there are a lot more that you guys will find out about me. Let me know in the comments down below 1 or 2 bookish facts about yourself. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more bookish content from me, go ahead and click subscribe below. Until next time, I will talk to you guys in the comments. Bye!